Heather Hewitt with that report, and a short time ago I was joined in our Sydney studio by the Immigration Minister Chris Bowen. Minister, today another boat, this one carrying 55 people, has been intercepted en route to Australia, in addition to the boatload of 32 people picked up on the weekend. Can you tell us yet where they'll be going for processing?
No, what I've said is that these people, like the boat intercepted on Saturday, will be processed not for refugee claims but for removal from Australia under our laws to a third country. It's well known, Lee, that we've entered into the arrangement with Malaysia, that we're in discussions with other countries across the region. It's very important we send that message, as the Prime Minister and I sent 2 Saturdays ago. Do not come to Australia by boat thinking that you'll be processed and resettled in Australia, because that is not any longer the position in Australia.
And why can't you tell us yet where they'll be going?
Well, as I say, it's well known that we're in discussions across the region, and not only with Malaysia but with other countries. It's appropriate we let those discussions reach their final stages.
So what's delaying the transfer then to a third country? What's the hold-up in the negotiations?
Well, there's no hold-up in particular, but these negotiations do take some time. Other governments have processes to go through, cabinets need to consider matters, etc. In relation to other countries, there have been discussions, well known with Papua New Guinea, for example, about various arrangements to break the people smugglers' business model.
So is it going to be, sorry to interrupt, is it going to be a case of whichever of those deals is finalised first will be where these people are going?
Well, look, we'll make further announcements at an appropriate time in relation to our discussions with other countries. But I did want to send a very clear message to people in Indonesia and Malaysia. You can't get around this system. You can't race to Australia. You will be dealt with under the new arrangements the Prime Minister and I have outlined and announced, which is that you will be processed in another country. OK,
we've established that point about sending the message, so let's put that aside. Why not process those people here? Aren't they in limbo then if you're still negotiating these deals before you can transfer them?
Well, their position we've outlined to them, which is that they'll be transferred to another country. They won't be processed in Australia.
What happens in the meantime? They're just sitting there, aren't they?
Well, they'll be detained pending removal. They'll have their very basic identity checks and their biometric checks, and then they'll be processed for removal from Australia.
So how far away do you think you are from being able to tell us where they'll be going and under what conditions?
Well, look, we'll make further announcements when we're in a position to.
And do you know how far away?
Well, look, I'm not going to put a time frame on it tonight, Lee. The discussions we've had with other countries have been very productive. They've been very professional, as you would expect, between Australia and our regional neighbours, and there's a spirit of goodwill, because Australia is not the only country that wants to break the people smugglers' business model. There are other countries in the region that want to do that too, who want to help Australia to do that. And there have been discussions that are advanced, but we'll be making further announcements when we're in a position to. It would be not appropriate for me to preempt those before those governments have finalised their consideration.
You've not really been able to answer in detail any of the questions that I've put to you so far about these people, where or when they'll be transferred. Why did the Gillard government announce this Malaysia deal before the details are pinned down? Well,
Australia and Malaysia agreed that we'd reached the level of commitment that it was appropriate to make that public, that it was appropriate for both governments to announce that to our nations and to announce that more broadly, and that would send a message about the seriousness with Australia and Malaysia are dealing with this. Of course, there are always final details and operational matters to be worked through, but those discussions are very advanced, and we took the joint decision between the governments that we were ready to make that public statement.
But how do we, the public, trust that it's not going to be another East Timor where something's been announced and then it falls over later on?
We've got a firm commitment from 2 Prime Ministers, a firm commitment with some principles outlined that 800 people will be transferred, that Australia will in turn resettle more people from Malaysia, 4,000 over 4 years, that people will not be returned to a country in which they are in genuine fear of persecution from. So this has been something built up over many months.
So you're absolutely certain it can't fall over at this point?
Well, we have a commitment. We have a commitment from a sovereign government, a partner of Australia, to enter into this agreement, yes.
Given that East Timor was announced before details were locked down, we're seeing the same thing with Malaysia and Papua New Guinea before the deals are completely finalised. Labor in opposition didn't support offshore processing, now you have. Is this government developing a habit of crafting its policy in this area on the run?
Well, as I say, Lee, take Malaysia for example. A long consideration, lots of discussions with Malaysia. Lots of discussions while we were being criticised for not engaging across the region when in fact we were engaging with Malaysia. But it's appropriate that we let those discussions play out, that we talk to Malaysia about our concerns and what we'd like to do, and that Malaysia consider it. And then, of course, when we're in a position to announce it, we did. But I completely reject the assertion that somehow this is being done in a speedy fashion when, as I say, first discussed with Malaysia last year, a range of discussions with them, and then announced at an appropriate time. And a lot of consideration and thought from both Australia and Malaysia.
Thailand has expressed interest in a Malaysia-style deal with Australia. Have we begun discussions with them on that?
Not formally. Of course, Kevin Rudd's in Thailand at the moment. I've been focused on the arrangements with Malaysia. I have said previously that I thought Malaysia provided a template for other nations, nations interested in breaking the people smugglers' business model. Thailand is a good friend of Australia and cooperates very closely with us on people smuggling issues, and we do assist them.
So you'd be interested in talking to them?
Well, certainly we'll be discussing a range of matters with them, including matters that can break the people smugglers' business model, and they've expressed an interest in doing the same, and that's something very welcome. But we're doing that across the region, Lee. Arising out of the Bali process meeting, and I know people said at the time of the Bali process it wasn't enough progress. I said it was, because it provided that framework to allow further discussions, as we've seen come to fruition with Malaysia already.
Is the reason that countries like Thailand are interested in a similar deal because Australia looks to be in a weak position because we're doing this 5-for-1 swap?
No, not at all. And I completely reject the opposition's criticism of this, for example.